Ergo Proxy follows Vincent Law, Riel Mayer, and several other characters' journeys to find the ultimate truth. After exploring in a previous video how truth-seeking can negatively impact our lives if we're not careful, I've decided to now explore the major influence of this concept and show how Ergo Proxy derives much of its esoteric lore from none other than Gnosticism. Hello Funkers, Tony Funk here. Today we're going to dive headfirst into the many similarities proxies have both with the Gnostic version of Jesus Christ and the evil demiurge god known as Saklas, as found in the 2nd and 3rd century Christian texts. But first, let's talk about knowledge. The pursuit of knowledge is one of the most important themes in Ergo Proxy. Several characters go on quests to find the truth regarding their own existence as a means to reach personal salvation. What do I mean by this exactly? Well, Vincent Law undergoes a journey to the domed city of Mosque in order to find out more about his past. For Vincent Law, salvation is identity. According to the Children's Society, which is a charity based out of the UK that focuses on helping disenfranchised children, and I quote, "Having an identity can give you a sense of belonging, which is important to your well-being and confidence." This means Vincent could not continue his life unless he had a form of identity so that he could have a sense of belonging, both in Romdo and later with Riel and Pino. Only then could he be saved from his murky past and start a new life. Raul Creed's salvation stemmed from the understanding the role he was playing as Director General of the Citizen Security Bureau. Creed, without the understanding of who he was serving and why, could not garner any sense of satisfaction from his labor, and by extension, could not be able to fulfill his duties with conviction. This is obviously brought upon by his suspicions about Vincent Law's importance, and later his slow unraveling about the truth of Romdo's fleeting existence. Therefore, Raul Creed's salvation is truth. But why am I talking about knowledge as a form of salvation? Well, you see, Ergo Proxy's exploration of how knowledge sets us free is very similar to a concept known as Gnosis. In order for me to explain Gnosis, I must give a short recap on an early Christian sect known as Gnosticism. The New Testament of the Bible consists of 27 books, 4 of which comprise as the Gospel, or Evangelion in Greek. Evangelion, directly translated, means the good news, referring to the emergence of the Messiah and humanity's salvation. What's interesting is that 3 of the books of the Gospel are quite similar in content, whereas the 4th book, being the Book of John, carries different theological messages and focuses more on esoteric concepts, rather than third-person accounts of Jesus. This is why the first 3 books of the Gospel, them being Mark, Matthew, and Luke, are called the Synoptic Gospels, due to their similarity in structure. The differences between John and the Synoptic Gospels have led many scholars to classify the Gospel of John as a Gnostic-influenced manuscript, particularly due to the persistent themes of light versus darkness, and salvation being achieved by knowing Jesus. Okay, but what exactly is Gnosticism? Well, the Gospel, including the following 23 books in the New Testament, were written by tertiary sources about Jesus' life, with the earliest book being written at least 62 years after Jesus' birth. There is an exception, being the Epistle of James, whose authorship and dating are still disputed to this day. However, the interpretations of these early manuscripts and their versions were innumerable during the time of their creation, leading to many disputes among early Christians as to their authenticity and meaning. Among the several varieties of Gospels, there were a group of loosely related manuscripts that preached salvation through knowledge of Jesus' teachings. These Gospels and teachings later became known as the Gnostic Gospels by scholars. Whereas the 3 Synoptic Gospels focused on the events of Jesus' life, the Gospel of John and the other Gnostic Gospels focused on his lessons about cosmology, cosmogony, and the nature of good and evil. In fact, what's interesting is that the Gospel of John is the only Gospel that makes any claims about Jesus' divinity, a common theme about the Gnostic Gospels. So, if Gnostic Gospels focus on salvation through knowledge, and also acknowledge Jesus as divine, what teachings do these Gospels claim have the power to redeem us? Well, for starters, let's talk about Sethian Gnosticism. Sethian Gnosticism is one of the largest schools of thought regarding Jesus' nature within the Gnostic teachings. Since early Christianity's first export outside of Judea was Eastern Rome, which was culturally Greek, many of the theologies stemming from Judaism fused with Greek philosophy and religions to form a hybrid Judeo-Greek school of thought. Sethian Gnosticism, then, drew from many beliefs including Platonism, which believed in the realness of abstract concepts. One such concept was the Demiurge, or the creator of the physical universe. The Demiurge in Platonism was more akin to an engineer than a god, however, as it was not depicted as a benevolent force, but rather a natural set of principles that created the universe as a consequence of a greater power. This prevalent belief was soon conflated with early rumors of Jesus Christ, and thus created the character of Saklas the Fool, also known as Yaldabaoth. In the Sethian text known as the Gospel of Judas, we learn about the natures of both Saklas and Jesus, and how conflating Saklas for the one true God leads to damnation. According to Jesus, a true God created 12 lesser gods, who created several worlds within the physical universe. These beings created Adam and Eve under the direction of the corrupted god known as Saklas, and allowed for them to propagate humanity. In a section of the text, Jesus is found laughing at his disciples for worshiping this evil god, and claims that he is the son of the true God whose mission is to teach man about their inherent deficiencies as children of Saklas, and to accept his truth in order to reach the higher and true God. The Gospel of Judas isn't the only Sethian gospel that explores Jesus' role as a guide to help humanity reach the highest God through knowledge. By looking at the common narratives within these gospels, we learn that Saklas is the demiurge that created man and the physical world, who also happens to be the God of the Old Testament. This implication, then, means that the events in the Bible from Genesis all the way to Malachi were depictions of Jews fighting wars for, praying to, and worshiping the wrong God. This means that in Gnostic theology, the only way to reach salvation is to learn of Jesus' teachings and worship the right God. Salvation through knowledge is then called Gnosis, which is actually the Greek word for knowledge. We must also understand that in Sethian cosmology, not only is Saklas a false god, but he is also evil, and everything within the material world is also evil because of him. Therefore, Jesus' goal in Gnostic Christianity is to rescue humanity's souls so that they may leave behind the imperfect and transient universe created by Saklas and join God in his many abstract emanations. So then, what does this have to do with proxies? For starters, let's take a look at Monad Proxy, mother of Ergo Proxy. Monad Proxy is one of the 300 proxies entrusted to create domes and power the artificial wombs that sustain sterile human populations. We can see her as a mother goddess to the city of Mosque, similarly to how the 12 lesser gods were gods of their respective physical worlds. What's interesting, however, is that Monad is named after a Platonic and later Gnostic concept known as the monad. The monad is considered to be the first of many emanations from the one true God. In this case, an emanation is one of the natural manifestations of God's being. To give an example of what an emanation is, our beings as humans inherently emanate CO2, BO, and heat among other things. For the Supreme God, however, its emanations are a lot cooler and consist of abstract ideas such as truth, wisdom, justice, etc. Well then, monad being the first emanation represents wholeness or oneness, and can be seen as the initial personification of God. Monad is both not God and God in the sense that it's God's proxy, by which lesser beings like humans can understand God's nature. This means then that narratively, Monad Proxy is the emanation of the true being represented as the creators. This means that the other 300 proxies are meant to be seen as other emanations of abstract concepts that comprise the creator's existence. For example, monad is the proxy of birth, which is an abstract concept that comprises an element of human existence. Proxy Kaskiz is the proxy of light, which is an important element of life. JJ, or Gigi, is the proxy of memory. And so on, and so on, and so on. What's interesting then, is that Proxy One can be seen as having a dual nature. Let's start off with the most obvious nature first. Proxy One's role in creating the beings of Romdo can be seen as a parallel to the role of the lesser gods that created the material world. However, due to Proxy One's antics in trying to protect his lesser creations and go against the creators, he takes up the role of Saklas as the demiurge of Romdo. You see, similarly to Saklas and his human children, Proxy One and his creations are also imperfect when compared to the creators. This causes Proxy One to become arrogant and attempt to usurp the creators for not allowing him to stay as the god of humanity forever. But we can also see Proxy One as an analog to Jesus. Jesus in the Gospel of Judas is said to come from Barbello by Judas Iscariot himself. Barbello is also an emanation from God, and acts as the mother representation of the one true God. This means then, that Judas claims Jesus is the son of the one and true God, with Jesus corroborating his claim, and offering to reveal to him more secret teachings. Proxy One then, just like Jesus, is the son of the one true God, and through his actions, he unwittingly reveals the truth about the true God known as the Creators to everyone. If we think about it, it's Proxy One then that ultimately provided Gnosis for Ergo Proxy, Donov Mayer, then Raul Creed, Daedalus, Riel, the rest of the proxies, and ultimately the rest of the humans. In essence, Ergo Proxy is an allegory for the creation myths of Gnostic scripture and a parallel to how humanity worshipped the wrong god and how their god's arrogance instigated a conflict with the creators. So in essence, Ergo Proxy is about the demiurge who tried to fight the supreme god, ironically by providing Gnosis. It's funny then, that Gnosis ended up causing far more trouble than it did good. But anyway, what do y'all think? I'd love to know if I missed any other allegories for Gnosticism, given that this anime is very dense. I'm sure there were a few concepts that escaped me, so let me know in the comments below. And as always, Funkers, take care, and I shall see yas down the road.